This tutorial is on the menstrual cycle, which will be taking place in female mammals on a monthly basis in order to prepare the endometrium lining of the uterus in case a fertilized egg should be formed. The endometrium will be building up with blood, which will contain sugars that will serve as a food source for the developing embryo until the placenta is formed. It will be controlled by hormones coming from the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary, and from the ovary itself. The first hormone that is going to be produced is going to be coming from the hypothalamus, and it's going to be GnRH, gonadotrophic releasing hormone, that is going to be affecting the anterior pituitary, causing it to release FSH. And FSH is going to be affecting a follicle. A follicle is where an oogonial cell is going to be housed. At birth, a little girl will have over 400,000 oogonial cells. Only about 400 of them will actually reach maturity during her reproductive years. And under the influence of FSH, the follicle will grow and mature, and the oogonial cell will pass through the first phase of meiosis, forming a secondary oocyte. That will be released at the time of ovulation. At the same time this follicle is maturing, it's also going to be producing estrogen. And estrogen is going to be affecting the development of the endometrium, causing it to build up. Once the secondary oocyte ovulates, it goes into the fallopian tube, and if it encounters a sperm, it will be fertilized within the first 48 hours. If it encounters a sperm after that, it's too late. It will not fertilize. That follicle, where the secondary oocyte was released from, now will become a corpus luteum. And under the influence of LH, another hormone coming from the anterior pituitary, it will continue to grow and produce progesterone in higher quantity. Estrogen will be coming from the follicle in higher quantity in the pre-ovulation phase. Progesterone will be coming from the corpus luteum in higher quantity in the post-ovulation phase. And both those hormones are going to be affecting the development of the endometrium. This picture here is found in your textbook, and you also have a homework assignment where you are going to be working with graphs very similar to this. And this is showing you what's happening in the ovary during the menstrual cycle. And the bottom graph is showing you what's happening in the uterus during the menstrual cycle. As I mentioned before, it will start with the hormone GnRH coming from the hypothalamus. The GnRH will affect the anterior pituitary, causing it to release its two hormones, FSH and LH. Now, during the beginning first 5 days of the cycle, menstruation is taking place. So the endometrium lining that had been produced in the previous cycle is being dislodged. At the same time, a new endometrium lining is going to be produced under the influence of estrogen and progesterone. This will be the new endometrium lining of the current cycle. So starting at the top picture, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, released from the pituitary, will affect the development of one follicle in the ovary. That follicle will grow, and inside, an oogonial cell will pass through the first phase of meiosis and become a secondary oocyte. At the same time that follicle is growing, it's producing estrogen. the estrogen is affecting the development of the endometrium lining during the proliferative phase. The proliferative phase is referring to the development of the endometrium lining. This is also happening during the follicular phase in the ovary, where that follicle is growing and maturing under the influence of FSH. On day 13, the LH level will peak, and that will cause ovulation to occur on day 14 of a normal 28-day cycle. 14 is the day of ovulation. Now, once ovulation occurs, the secondary oocyte goes into the fallopian tube, and the follicle that had housed the secondary oocyte now becomes the corpus luteum, Latin for yellow body. The corpus luteum, under the influence of LH, will now continue to produce progesterone in a higher quantity. Progesterone will be post-ovulation, developing now the endometrium in what we call now the secretory phase. And it will continue to do its job until the end of the cycle. As the levels of progesterone continues to rise, a negative feedback is exerted over LH, causing its levels to diminish. The lower levels of LH will cause the progesterone to also decrease. Since progesterone is maintaining the endometrium lining, the lower levels of progesterone will cause the endometrium lining to be dislodged during menstruation. If fertilization does not occur, the low levels of progesterone and estrogen will again exert feedback control on the anterior pituitary, causing it to release FSH, and the cycle will start again. If pregnancy occurs, the corpus luteum must be kept viable, producing progesterone, in order to keep the endometrium intact. Because if it's dislodged, the embryo may be lost, since that's where it's implanted. So the developing placenta will produce human chorionic gonadotrophic hormone, HCG, and it will continue the job of LH, maintaining the corpus luteum, causing it to continue to produce progesterone until the placenta begins its own production of estrogen and progesterone. This hormone, HCG, is routinely used to screen for pregnancy. If you are trying to become pregnant, the best time to engage would be between days 11 and days 15. The egg must be fertilized 24 hours after ovulation on day 14. So that makes it viable just from day 14 to day 15. But the sperm can live up to 5 days in the female system after ejaculation. So you could have unprotected sex on the day 11 and have sperm there waiting to fertilize the egg once it ovulates. Does that mean that it's safe to have unprotected sex during any of the other days of the cycle? If you do not want to become pregnant, then no, you need to take precaution throughout the whole cycle. There are factors that can control the release of hormones and cause eggs to ovulate outside of the normal time that we've been discussing. There's always a higher incidence of pregnancy in rape situations due to those hormones being released under emotional distress. This table shows you a summary of the endocrine glands involved in the menstrual cycle, the hormones that they produce, and the target organs that those hormones are affecting. So it starts with the hypothalamus, with the production of gonadotrophic releasing hormone. that affects the anterior pituitary, causing it to produce FSH during the pre-ovulation phase of the menstrual cycle, the follicular phase. The FSH is going to affect a follicle in the ovary, causing its maturation and passage through meiosis I, and also production of estrogen from that follicle, all under the influence of FSH. The anterior pituitary also produces LH during post-ovulation phase, called the luteal phase, and the LH is going to be affecting the mature follicle, causing ovulation to occur on day 14, and then it'll continue to affect the corpus luteum, which is the mature follicle after ovulation has occurred, causing it to produce progesterone. The ovary is also going to act as an endocrine gland, producing estrogen from the immature follicle, and that estrogen is going to be affecting the endometrium during the proliferative phase, which is going to be pre-ovulation, approximately days 6 through 13. And the ovary is also producing progesterone from the corpus luteum, and the progesterone is also affecting the endometrium during the post-ovulation phase, the secretory phase, which lasts approximately from days 14 to day 28.